So, good afternoon. Today we're going to look at defense in-depth strategy. This is a strategy that is applied um, within our systems in organizations to help us protect our information system assets. So we will define defense in depth. Then we look at some of the cybersecurity issues that organizations are grappling with in today's technological world. Then we look at the defense in-depth architecture. We'll also mention some of the elements within the defense in-depth. Then we look at the challenges, and finally we mention some of the strategies that we can implement to overcome the challenges of defense in depth. Now, to simply define defense in depth, it's an approach to cybersecurity in which organizations implement a series of defensive mechanisms. Um, a series of defensive mechanisms which are layered in order to protect data and information, or in order to protect the information system assets. So basically it's about having different layers of security within your organization, so that in case one of the layers is compromised, you still have other more layers to protect your systems, so that your data is safe. So if one line of defense is compromised, you have additional layers existing as a backup to ensure that threats are stopped along the way. So it's a multi-layered approach with intentional redundancies that increase the security of a system as a whole and address many different attacks. So yeah, so it's just, for example, like if I use an analogy of a building where sometimes you have a perimeter wall, then you have security guards, then you have security cameras, etc. So those are different layers of security, just to make sure that your home is protected. So we can apply the same for IT systems to make sure that we also have different layers of security that we're going to talk about later on to protect our systems at all times. There are different common cybersecurity issues that organizations are grappling with today. Common issues to any organization today will be maybe we have the anti-malware or the antiviruses that have not been updated. Still, I'll talk about the issue of antivirus and the anti-malware later on. But let's say we have anti-malware or software that has not been updated. Lack of training for the employees, because these guys, your team needs to be trained so that they're aware of the environment, how to secure it, etc. Software patches that have not been updated. Sometimes we ignore these issues. Organization release patches, and sometimes there's IT team forget to patch the software. We have security policies that are not being enforced in some organizations. Those policies don't exist at all, or for some organizations they exist but they have not been implemented. The other thing would be misusing poorly implemented cryptographical systems, or encryption. We have encryption systems to make sure that we secure our data by way of encryption. So if it's poorly done, then that can lead to a security breach. System misconfigurations, which in reports that have been released in 2024, shows that it's one of the major issues that organizations are grappling with. That is system misconfiguration. So it could be your servers, it could be your firewalls, it could be your switches, routers, and all IT systems that have been poorly misconfigured normally lead to attacks. Remote employees are connecting to unsecured networks such as the public internet. After COVID, everyone, a large number of people are working from home or working from anywhere. Some working from their mobile devices. We're not sure because that is remote work. So long as you're not sitting in your office to work from your office, you will be working and doing your work as normally from wherever you are across the globe. But then we're not sure whether the network that the employees are connecting to is secure. For example, if they connect to the public Wi-Fi in airports, let's say they were traveling and decide to work before the flight takes off, or let's say home networks, most of them are not secured. So those are things that we grapple with when it comes to remote work. Physical security flaws such as unsecured server rooms. Yeah, nowadays people have gone to cloud, but yeah, there are organizations that still have their own local setup, server rooms, the network rooms, and all of that. So if the server room or network room is poorly secured, then it means that unauthorized people might enter and breach the security. Business partners such as cloud developers, cloud service providers are not fully secure, or let's just say third-party vendors, or we never know. Normally, it's important that if you have policies in place or the third-party policy, that they need to comply with certain security policies. So sometimes we get the services from them, but we're not sure. We don't check whether they are really secure. We don't sign SLAs, or if we do sign, then we most of the times do not check what the SLA says. People just sign. So those are some of the security issues that organizations are grappling with. Next, we now look at the defense in-depth architecture, and we're going to look at three major things. One is the physical controls, technical controls, and administrative controls. So those are the three key components that make this up, the defense in-depth architecture. So physical controls are controls that include security measures that prevent physical access to IT systems, such as security guards or locked doors. I talked about physical entry into a server room. At the gate of your premise, you have a security guard, you have locks on the door and all that. Technical controls include security measures that protect network systems or resources using specialized hardware, such as firewall appliance or antivirus programs, security event management, security incident and event management systems. We have the EDRs, or extended endpoint detection system, network detection systems, IPS, IDS, etc. So those are technical controls that are normally put in place to make sure that your systems are protected. There are also administrative controls. These are security measures that consist of policies or procedures directed at an organization's employees, including users, and so on, etc. So those are the three major components that make up the architecture. So just to repeat: physical controls, technical controls, and administrative controls. So we are going to see how what we have within the systems that we have within those three that we have mentioned. So in what we call the elements of defense in depth. So one element that I don't know whether to classify it under the physical control is about education, education about security issues. That is basically training your employees or creating awareness within your organization, awareness training, technical trainings, and all that to your employees to make sure that they know exactly the threats that exist, how do they respond to those threats, The technical team need to have the technical know-how on how to deal with these threats. So training is a very, very important component of a defense in depth and should be done regularly to just make sure that everyone is up to date, all the way from the top management to the cleaner within the organization, to just the simple things. For example, if I get hold of a flash drive within the organization, do I run and insert it in a device, or what do I do? Do I report to the person in charge of security and all that? If someone asks me for a Wi-Fi password, what do I do? If I receive an email with an attachment that is suspicious, what do I do? And how do I know that this email is suspicious, etc.? And there's so many other things. Another element is an efficient access management system. So we have applications that we need to access. We need to make sure that we have a system that can help us to authenticate, authorize. That is basically an authentication system, authorization system, and accounting system. So authentication, when you want to get into the system. Authorization, what do you do once you get into the system? Accounting is taking logs of what you're doing within the system. So it's important that a defense in depth should have an efficient access management system. Antivirus and firewalls. Nowadays people still use the antivirus. It's important. Those are the basics. Firewall within your network, it's important that you have a firewall, but we have also mentioned that network segmentation. So firewall also comes when you segment your network. Let's say within your organization you have the finance team, you have the IT team, you have different departments within your organization. Do you bundle all of them in one network, or what I would refer to? Do you flat network? Do you bundle of them in a flat network, or do we segment the network? And also there is also within those different departments, once you do the segmentation, there might also be micro segmentation within the segments. So segmentation, just to clear, I've mentioned it, but now each segment have a firewall? Maybe yes, which I would say. And also the network architecture comes into play. Are you going to go with a 3-tier architecture, the collapsed architecture, the flat architecture, and so on and so forth? There's also the issue about password protection management. We need to have password management systems. I'm not saying that the password management systems are like fireproof or bulletproof, but just to help you manage your passwords, avoid people having like simple password like their dates of birth and all that. So it's important that you have this in place. Intrusion detection system and intrusion detection system and intrusion prevention systems. Within a layered within the 3-tier network architecture, these are systems that you need to have in place, including the firewalls, just to make sure that you monitor your network. I've mentioned about the network segmentation, patch management. You need to patch your systems. When the vendors release the patches, you need to immediately patch to avoid the zero-day threats, or sometimes there are zero-day threats and then the patches are released, or some are just released every quarter, every month, or whenever they are available. So you need to make sure that you are able to properly patch your systems. API security, nowadays for example, in the banking systems, so many integrations, so many systems need to communicate, and the gateway for this communication is the API. So we need to make sure that we secure our APIs, test them to ensure that maybe do a pen test to make sure that they are secure. The principle of least privilege, and I'm also going to mention something that should be here, like the zero trust. Just give, as you give access to the systems, you need only to give access to the users to enable them do their work, what they are supposed to do. You don't need to give too much privileges, And now the concept of zero trust is coming up, which I'm going to mention, where we look at the challenges and the mitigations of so zero trust. I mean, trust none, always verify, and all that. Backup and recovery is a very important element here. Normally have a backup. You never know. We are not saying that if you have all these systems in place, you're not going to be compromised. You may be compromised, but having a backup will make sure that you get back to business almost immediately after you've been compromised. You don't mind about, paying ransom and telling you your data has been encrypted. You have to pay this amount for you to get back your data. So next, once we look at those elements, as our companies grow and the number of devices, applications, and services used across the organization increase, there are important security layers within the defense in depth that you must have. One, we have the two-factor authentication or the multi-factor authentication. All of this is a must. I've mentioned about the intrusion detection systems, the endpoint detection and response systems. You need to have this. In as much as you have the antivirus, anti-malware, you need to have an endpoint detection and response systems. You need to have the network detection and response system, or the extended, the one that does both functions of an EDR and an NDR. So, and that is, most of them are AI enabled. They're able to learn the behavior of the users. For example, for the endpoints, EDR, in AI enabled EDR is able to learn what we call the behavioral analytics. They're able to user entity behavior and analytics. So if you get an EDR which has that element, then it's able to learn the behavior of the user, and sometimes they're able to flag some anomalies, or when the user deviates from the normal behavior. And the question rises, what is a normal behavior, which we're not going to answer here. So another thing that is key is network segmentation, encryption, data loss prevention. You need to have VPNs, but there is also a debate whether today's VPNs must be there. Security incident and event management system to monitor. You need to have visibility of your systems. Very important element. You need to have that 360-degree visibility of your assets, what's going on, which one is being compromised, so that you're able to respond immediately. Next, we look at the challenges of defense in depth, and being that it's a very important architecture or strategy that we use within organizations today. But this architecture faces a lot of challenges because the threat landscape has changed. Look at the technological environment and all that. New, IoT devices have come into play, increasing the attack surface and all that. So it means something needs to be done. But let us look at the challenges. One, increasing sophistication of threats through advanced persistent threats and use of AI and machine learning. So this has totally changed the landscape, and therefore the traditional defense in that strategy cannot really respond. But we really need to do what we call, instead of saying defense in depth, maybe we say defense breadth. We expand the scope and add more systems to respond to the sophistication of threats that are AI enabled and using machine learning, etc. The other challenge is complexity of modern IT environments. For example, we have the cloud adoption, we have IoT systems, hybrid work environments. I'd mentioned that today people work from home, some people work from the office, work from wherever you are. Cloud systems and all that. Do you think a defense in depth is able to respond to that? No, something needs to be done, and I'll talk about that thing that needs to be done later on. Threat landscape evolution, for example, the zero-day attacks, supply chain attacks, the defense in depth is not able to respond to that. Scalability and agility as another challenge, as modern businesses demand agility, and defense in depth frameworks can be so slow to adapt to rapid technological changes. Other thing which I think is a big thing is insider threats. Of course, we have all these defenses, we have all these layers, but you have someone within your system who understands your network, who understands everything, who has access to your systems. So insider threats are privilege misuse. Let's say someone that has a privilege to access a system and they have the admin privileges, maybe. So these insider threats can bypass several security layers by exploiting legitimate access rights. Yeah, maybe someone is using your employees to breach your systems. And as insider threats is also lack of behavioral monitoring, where we have the traditional defense in-depth setups may not adequately detect anomalies in insider behavior. And that's why I'd say that as we expand the scope of defense in-depth, where we need to, instead of just using the antivirus, we need to incorporate an AI-enabled EDR that has a capability of user entity behavior to analyze the behavior of the user, and using AI, it's able to detect which is a normal behavior and which one is an abnormal behavior. Then we look at the strategies. How do we overcome these challenges? One is automation and AI. Use AI-driven tools for real-time detection and response. So if you're going for, let's say, a security incident and event management solution as part of the layers in your defense in-depth strategy, then go for that which has AI capability, right? We also have zero trust architecture. Yeah, we can talk about access management, we can talk about least privilege, but zero trust architecture, which implements what we call never trust, always verify. That is a model to complement defense. And don't trust anyone, don't trust anything, whether they have access. You have to always verify what these people can access, and together with the principle of least privilege, then we are able to resolve some of the issues that we have with defense in depth. Regular training, we had mentioned about training as part of defense in depth. So we normally always educate your staff on emerging threats and secure practices. Centralized management, let us use SIEMs and SOA platforms for integrated visibility and response. But then apart from these strategies to overcome the challenges, there is a need to come up with another model, to come up with another strategy that can fill the gaps of defense in depth. And maybe that strategy, maybe I'm doing my research, but it's gonna be based on, let's look at the attackers of today, the attackers of modern world. How do they attack the systems? Normally, we have what we call the attack chains. Yeah, there are those methods that they use. We have the MITRE framework that sometimes helps you to understand the steps that attackers go through to be able to compromise your system. Can we build a model that is based on those attack chains, so that we make sure that we have a defense for every phase of attack? So that's it for today. Just explaining a little bit of defense in depth. We'll do more videos to help our listeners to understand more about defense in depth and what is being done, or research that is being done to replace or to fill the gaps that we have in defense in depth. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, Alex Asunga.